Well, for some, and this is unbelievable to me, for some, the brutal terrorist attack on October 7th has been forgotten. Others deny, well, that attack never happened. A group of government leaders from around the world believe it's important to keep the memory alive. They traveled to the sites where some of the attacks took place to see for themselves the undeniable evidence. Chris Mitchell brings us that story.
Members of parliament from more than 20 nations came here to the heart of Kfar Aza to see for themselves firsthand the destruction from October 7th.
Today we have the largest delegation of members of parliament around the world since October 7th. The importance is not just to educate them on what actually happened here so they can see it for themselves.
Josh Reinstein, president of the Israel Allies Foundation, organized the visit.
Well, these parliamentarians aren't just members of parliament. They're actually chairmen of caucuses of many groups of members of parliament in their home countries. We have 53 Israel Allies caucuses. 21 of them are actually presented here today. These people represent hundreds and even thousands of people who support Israel. So it's important for them to understand so they can go back to their parliaments and explain to their colleagues as well.
The experience made a powerful impression.
It's terrible. It was terrible to read what the terrorist organization did here.
This is a reaction of shock and realizing how brutal these people, are they called people, can be. And it's something which is not acceptable. We cannot remain without any move, without any steps to change the situation. But the main problem is in their head and in their hearts. So it's not a problem so much of military power. And I think something has to be done with the way of thinking. And this is the thing we need to address, because these people can repeat such a deeds again. And as we have heard the leaders of Hamas, they promised to do it again. Yeah. So this is not something we can allow, and we need to change the way of thinking.
The group signed a resolution calling for the end of UNRWA, the UN agency found to be filled with Hamas terrorists.
I feel a terrible betrayal, because these people were supposed to help. This was an international body, and they simply lied to people who commissioned them to help the hostages. This is a terrible deceit.
When the war has gone on, and we can see also that civilians always suffer during the wartime, we understand that we need some kind of organization taking care of the humanitarian aid. And this is what the international community would have to decide on. What type of organization could be more useful than UNRWA has been until now?
Member of Knesset Sharon Haskell addressed the group and explained why their visit is so important.
We see such a mass denial from social media and some, mainstream full media. But what had actually happened here, those representatives who came here to see through their own eyes what we've actually experienced here, one of the worst butcher and massacre that Israel had ever experienced in its history, is critical. I mean, they see the evidence, they feel it, they understand it, and no one can deny that.
Haskell says Israel is fighting on the front lines of the battle facing the world.
What we're fighting here, it's not a territorial war. This is not a Russian-Ukrainian war. This is a war on our values. This is a war against radical Islam. I mean, they had their territory. They didn't fight for that. They are fighting for the complete annihilation of the state of Israel and butchering and massacring every single living Jew. You need to understand, this land is the front gate. I mean, we're fighting this war that the rest of the world might be behind. I mean, it's creeping in, but we are literally fighting on our identity, on our values, on democracy, on liberties, freedom, women's rights, freedom of speech, equality. That's what we're really fighting for. And this is a fight and a war that the rest of the world has to join forces together, because it doesn't stop in Israel. It's already in Europe, in North America, Central and South America. It's everywhere. It's spreading. And wherever there's evil, we have to stand and be very, very clear about it, that there's zero tolerance towards it.
Reinstein says Christian support is vital during this dark time in Israel's history.
It's Christians, not countries, that are standing with Israel. What makes this a very special event is that these people are all men and women of faith. These are Christian legislators who take their biblical support and turn to real political action. We call that faith-based diplomacy, and that's what's unique about this conference, that so many members of parliament from around the world have come together as people of faith to stand with Israel.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Kfar Aza, Israel.
Now more than ever, we need to let people know we stand with Israel, and we need to let our elected officials know that we stand with Israel. We need to let Israel know we will never forget October 7th. It's never going to leave our memories. What happened there was absolutely horrific. It was intentionally targeting civilians. It was intentionally, in that kibbutz, Kfar Aza, which is Hebrew for town of Gaza. It's right across. You literally, from the fence of the kibbutz, you can see Gaza. They were the Israelis who are reaching out to Palestinians in Gaza, wanting to help them, wanting to have peace, wanting to employ them. As a result, the terrorists knew exactly where to go. Who did they target? They targeted the young people area of that kibbutz. This is where young people in their 20s were living. And that devastation you saw was all targeted to wipe out a future generation. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to humiliate them. They killed in the first couple of houses. I spoke with the brother of Sivan, who was killed. She's just 23 years old. Her whole life ahead of her is all taken away by these terrorists. And then the rest of that group was kidnapped and are still being held hostages. This isn't something long ago. The atrocity is still happening today. They're being imprisoned in dark tunnels in Gaza. Now, anyone that wants to say October 7th was justified because Israel is an occupying power, you do not know the facts. Israel wasn't occupying Gaza at all. Gaza was under Hamas. That was the government of Gaza. IDF wasn't in Gaza. There wasn't anything to do with Gaza. Israel was occupying Israel, which is a nation recognized by the UN, by the world community, and by the United States of America. To say it's an illegal occupation, you're going against international law. Let's make sure you know the facts and you know the history and you can stand up to this horrible propaganda that's being put out. The war crime is on Hamas. It's not on Israel. As long as Hamas still holds the hostages, as long as they threaten Israel, Israel has every right to defend itself, to get its citizens back home, to do these things, whatever is necessary to say, Hamas, you can't exist anymore. So I'll call for that number again. Please let your senators and your representative in Congress know how you feel. Call them today. The vote is going to be ongoing, but you need to let them know. 202-224-3121. You're counting on them to stand with the